The Rotary Club of Columbus is a membership organization with a passion for service. Founded in 1915, we're one of Rotary's largest and oldest clubs worldwide. My name is Tyler Townsend, and I have the privilege of serving as the 2019-2020 Club President. We all know the challenges the coronavirus pandemic is posing. Our club has faced tough times, including 2 world wars, but this is the first time we've had to suspend our in-person meetings. So instead of meeting here at the Trade Center, we're going to meet every week online until it's appropriate to return. So whether you're a member or a guest, thank you for joining us today. We're happy that you're here. Welcome to the June 24th meeting of the Rotary Club of Columbus. Thank you for keeping Rotary on your calendar. And for those of you that are watching right now online, I want to remind you to chat with your friends and ask questions of our speaker when we get to our keynote. So this is our last meeting of the Rotary year. Our club has a lot to be proud of this year. We helped build a literacy room at the Boys and Girls Club where we had over 160 of our Rotarians participate by inscribing into books that these children will then read and be inspired by in the future. We provided lunches to children in Honduras who otherwise would not be able to attend school, as they would have to spend their time searching for their next meal. And then back here in Columbus, our Rotarians inspired local high schoolers with insights into their own careers. But with these achievements, we also had some disappointments this year as the coronavirus got in the way of a lot of our plans. So our GRSP student had to leave early on short notice. Our Big Wheels on Broadway fundraiser had to be postponed. RILA, which is a fantastic youth leadership program, was canceled, and we had 13 high schoolers that we were planning to sponsor for that event. And we had a group that were planning to go to Guatemala to check on our past service projects there and look for ideas for future projects. And their trip got canceled within days of when they were supposed to leave. But throughout these disappointments, we've really come out very strong. The coronavirus and our club's response taught us how dedicated our Rotarians are throughout our club. And our engagement has remained high because of that. And the centerpiece, I think, for this was our quick change to this virtual format. And you might be surprised who is credited with this quick response. About a year ago, I got a telephone call from Joe Sondry, and he asked me if we had thought about streaming our meetings so that those who are mobility constrained, unable to attend our meetings, could still participate. And that was a good idea. It wasn't something that we had considered before. And so our board responded as our board does by approving some technology. We formed a technology team to bring this up to speed. We've actually been streaming our meetings live since last summer. So when March came along and we had to switch to a full virtual only meetings, we had that framework in place. And so I want to thank Joe for that idea and getting us off to a good start. Other ideas from our members have helped our engagement and helped us stay connected this year. We moved our happy hours to online, which at the time that was a question of how successful it would be, but those are absolutely fun and they'll continue. We've started a weekly game of friendly online poker, just some time to hang out and have fun with each other. And we've returned our breakfast mixes to an online format as well. So we're learning that we can stay socially connected even though we're physically distanced. So before we move on to our program, I want to thank this year's board. Our board has been terrific. They've not only managed their normal activities, but they were called upon to make some tough decisions and to give some good discussion to help you as a club as we move through our pandemic response. Two of our board members, their terms are expiring this week, and so I want to thank Jason Cooper and Judy Thomas. Jason and Judy, y'all have spent years on the board giving your time and your thoughts and your expertise. And I know that the club joins me in thanking you for that. Our club had several stars this year, and more than I can name. And I know that I'm going to pick a few, and I know that I'm going to miss some that are obvious. So at the risk of that, I want to start by thanking Julie. We all know, Julie, how much you do to help our club. I learned even more how much you help our club. We just wouldn't be the same. You keep us moving forward. You're extremely helpful to the president in my role and understanding how I can best plug in. So thank you very much, Julie, for your dedication to Rotary and what you provide for us. Mary, I want to say hello to you, tell you I miss you, and I want to thank you. You have been my biggest cheerleader from the moment I was named as president-elect. Mary congratulated me, but she told me she was excited for me to do it. And as recently as, and throughout the year, and as recently as just a couple of weeks ago, called me and about something, and again mentioned how much she supported me. And so, Mary, in our club and in Rotary, that means so much to me. So thank you for your support. Newt, who I succeeded as president, did a great job bringing me along and helping me to look forward and see what types of questions and where I would best serve the club and how I could best do that. So Newt, thank you for the time you spent with me for that. Someone who is at all of our meetings, who does a great job, and he does it well by staying a little bit behind the scenes, is Jim Cawthorn, our club photographer. Jim, you've taken some great photographs to archive our meetings. You've taken some photographs that have great meaning to those that were in it. So I thank you for your service that you provide for the club. Charlie Johnson is our treasurer. That is a ongoing job to keep our books in line. Elizabeth Walden is putting together our Rotobits every week, each and every week. She works on that. One of the decisions that every president has to make early on is who they're going to ask to be their programs chair. And I was very fortunate that when I asked Haley Tillery to be our programs chair, she said yes. And so, Haley, I want to thank you for the work that you've done this year. You did a fantastic job. You were so well organized. You had a great vision for putting together a program set that was diverse and would interest different members at different times. And so we have our programs booked typically several months in advance. So right when she was really at the end of her work, the coronavirus hit, and she had to go into high gear, working with our speakers to understand who was comfortable being online, helping them figure out how we were going to do it. Zoom was new to a lot of us, streaming to Facebook. So we had to figure all that out. Haley, thank you for doing that. The last person I want to thank is someone who is a friend of mine, who's been a terrific mentor and is behind the scenes today, Ryan Clements. You've done, for me, a great job just helping me to think through what our club stands for and how I can best serve the club. And the thing that I appreciate and have come to realize so much about Ryan, for those of you that have not worked with him, is he has an ability to quickly see a problem, break it down, and figure out a solution. So things that would take me an hour to figure out, he does it in minutes. So I remember back in early March when we realized we might have a problem. We had our first case reported in March, early March. And Haley and I had an initial conversation of what it might look like from the trade center's point of view. On March 11th, we had a meeting. It turned out to be our last meeting. That afternoon, I called up Ryan. I said, Ryan, we might have to think about going virtual a little quicker than we thought. What might that look like? And he stopped and he thought about it for 5, maybe 10 seconds. And he said, well, we have this equipment, this equipment, this equipment. This is how we do it. We need this piece here. We'll be good. And again, that would have taken me hours. The board responded as our board does by approving that money. So Ryan, you've been terrific for me. I want to thank you for that. So again, I know I missed several people. Thank you for giving me the time to share my appreciation for our club. So at this time, we'll resume to our regular meeting format, and we're going to do our Pledge of Allegiance this week. Since it is my last meeting, I got to select the pledge, and it will be led by my 2 sons, Aiden and Chase, and my 2 nieces, Avery and Lainey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So thank you, Aiden, Chase, Avery, and Laney, for leading the Rotary Club of Columbus in the Pledge of Allegiance. So some of you that may be visitors here today may not know, but our club recognizes and honors an active duty military guest from Fort Benning at each of our meetings. And during the coronavirus pandemic, we've not always been able to connect with one of these soldiers and film that recognition. And it's given us a great opportunity to recognize one of our own, something I thoroughly enjoyed. So at this time, Dick Nuremberg will recognize our military guest.
President Tyler and fellow Rotarians, this is Dick Nuremberg, and it's my honor today to introduce as our military guest my friend, Major General retired Walt Wojdakowski. Walt is originally from Illinois, but he went to West Point and graduated there in 1972. And my understanding is that while he was there, he played basketball for Bobby Knight, and one of his teammates was Mike Krzyzewski. And Bobby might have had trouble pronouncing their names. After he came to Fort Benning for Infantry Officer Basic, he had many assignments, as you might understand, at various levels. He rose to command battalion, the 3rd Battalion, 41st Infantry, and the 2nd Armored Division during Desert Storm. He came back to Fort Benning to command the 11th Infantry Regiment in 1993, and that's when I first met him, because that's when I got here. And interestingly enough, just to illustrate the close ties between Fort Benning and Columbus and our Rotary Club, besides Walt and me, other colonels at Fort Benning at the time included Greg Camp, David White, Dwight Plummer, a whole bunch of us, and now we're all in Rotary together. After the 11th Regiment here at Fort Benning, he went to Germany, and then he got promoted to Brigadier General, and he came back to Fort Benning as the Deputy Commanding General. After that, he went to Iraq, where he was the Deputy Commanding General of the Joint Forces over there, the Combined Joint Task Force in Iraq. And he came back here as a Major General to command Fort Benning. So he's had very strong ties here. As a matter of fact, when I retired from the Army in 1995, and I guess what many of us may or may not realize is just as many Columbus people are not familiar with what's on Fort Benning, people who live on Fort Benning are not necessarily familiar with Columbus. And it was Walt's wife, Candy, a Hardaway graduate who was there at the same time as my wife, who showed us around different areas that we might choose to live. Since retiring as a Major General, Walt has been very active, still mentoring Army leaders. I am proud to call Walt, who has many awards and decorations, including the Silver Star and the Bronze Star, the Combat Infantryman's Badge, and the Expert Infantryman's Badge, not only a fellow Army veteran, but my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walt, for your service to your community and to your country. And I know I speak on behalf of all of our members when I say that we're happy that you made Columbus your home in retirement and that you remain a part of our club. Another tradition that we've begun during this time is to highlight a member of our club who is a leader of their organization and who has innovated to adapt to these times. And today we're going to hear from Adrian Chester, pastor of the Greater Bellwood Baptist Church.
Thank you, President Tyler and fellow Rotarians. My name is Adrian Chester, and I serve as pastor of Greater Bellwood Baptist Church here in Columbus, Georgia. In our Rotary Club, I am the one responsible for finding someone to do the invocation every week. So I've been jobless over the last couple of weeks as we've not been able to gather in our corporate gatherings every Wednesday, and I look forward to the appropriate time of when we can return as a Rotary Club. Worship here in COVID-19 has really changed how we do things here at Greater Bellwood Baptist Church, from going to our weekly in-person opportunities for connection and discipleship and even worship, to now everything having to go virtually. It's been a struggle for some, and even with us as an administrative team, we've had to make adjustments of how we make sure that we cover every age demographic and making sure that they are engaged. For just as many people as we have using cloud-based platforms such as Zoom and GoToMeeting and WebEx Meeting, we also have those who are still just dialing in by phone in order to stay connected. Our opportunities of worship have gone completely to social media and platforms such as YouTube, and we've also had to rely more on a platform in which we put in place some years ago of virtual giving or electronic giving, where persons can go to our app, our Greater Bellwood Baptist Church app, and make their gifts electronically. One of the areas in which we are very much concerned about and still remain concerned about is keeping our young people engaged, as many of them have missed several months of school, of in-person school, due to having to go virtually for the remainder of the school year since about mid-March, of keeping them engaged and everything that's going on in the world, making sure that they don't become depressed and just out there all over the place, has been a high hill for us to have to climb as a church, but we're making great progress. And so I want to thank each of you for this opportunity to share with you of how we've had to make adjustments as a church. And now I turn it back over to you, President Tyler.
Adrian, thank you for how you serve our community, how you serve your church. You did fantastic before this, and you've really stepped up during this time. Our Rotary Club is fortunate. We've got some really good partners that we work with, and one of them is the Trade Center catering staff, and Weezy, Wingo, Motzel will now have a message for us.
Hello, Columbus Rotary Club. Weezy from the catering team here at the Trade Center. We first want you to know that we miss you so much. We can't wait for y'all to get back to the Trade Center so we can feed you lunch in the dining gallery. And then secondly, we really want to thank you for your generous gift during our team members' time of need. With COVID, our lives completely changed, and your gift really made a huge difference and a huge impact on some great folks right here in Columbus. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We really appreciate you. Can't wait to see you.
Thank you, Weezy. You have a fantastic team, and it was our pleasure to help out some of your team members who needed a bridge for a short period of time. So before we introduce our program, I have a couple of brief announcements. One is you may remember when the virus first hit and we moved to virtual meetings, we told you that the board intended to discount next quarter's dues to help offset the money that was not being spent on meals. And so I'm happy to tell you our board met last week, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So our dues next quarter for anybody who is a member on June 30th will be $120, reduced from the regular $250. And so that'll go in effect on July 1st. And to celebrate that, on July 2nd, we will have our next online happy hour from 6 to 8 p.m. You'll receive a link in the email for that. So at this time, Ben McMinn will introduce our speaker.
Thank you, President Tyler. Fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce Tiffany Wilson today. Tiffany has spent over 18 years bringing innovative medical technology from benchtop to bedside and is globally recognized for her thought leadership on innovation and commercialization of technology in medtech and healthcare. She is the CEO of Global Center for Medical Innovation, a nonprofit organization that represents the Southeast's first medtech innovation center. Tiffany joined GCMI from Scientific Intake, where she was a VP of Business Development and Strategy. In 2002, she launched ACEL as VP of Corporate Strategy and Finance, leading a broad range of initiatives, including corporate development, investor relations, regulatory affairs, reimbursement, and management of the Scientific Advisory Board. Tiffany holds an MBA from Georgetown University, McDonough School of Business, and a BBA in International Business from Loyola University, New Orleans. Tiffany serves as a founding member of MedTech Women at Southeast Medical Device Association, was past president of SEMDA, and serves on the board of directors for Georgia Bio, Health Connect South, SEMDA, and Connects. She was appointed to the National Advisory Board on Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the U.S. Department of Commerce from 2014 to 2018. In 2015, Tiffany received the Georgia Bio Community Award, and in 2017 was presented with the prestigious Georgia Bio Industry Growth Award. She was recognized by Inc. magazine as one of the 17 women to watch in 2017 and one of Becker Hospital Review's 110 women in medtech to know in 2017. Tiffany, thank you for being with us today. We're excited to hear from you. And as a reminder, fellow Rotarians, please remember if you have any questions, post them in the comments section. Without further ado, Tiffany Wilson.
Great, thanks so much. And thanks again to Tyler for the invitation and to Ben for the kind introduction. I hope all of you at the Columbus Rotary and your families are staying healthy and safe during these unprecedented times. I appreciated both Tyler's and Adrian's comments about navigating the new normal in the normal course of business regardless of the industry. It's really fitting for today's conversation. So let me just share my screen here. There we go. Super. So we hear a lot in today's world about innovation, that word innovation, and I suppose it means different things to different people. But in our world of innovating in medical technology, we're really talking about the process of translating an idea or an invention to a product, such as a medical device, that creates value that customers will pay for. And in this case, creating value means that we're really addressing unmet clinical needs. In this specific case, I'm really talking about innovation in PPE, personal protective equipment, namely face shields, during the beginning of this first phase of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is designed to protect the wearer from injury or spread of infection and illness. Now, all PPE that's intended for use in a medical healthcare setting is classified by the FDA as a medical device, which means that we're protecting the wearer from injury or the spread of illness, and we've got to follow FDA's regulations and certain standards for productions. And so face shields and face masks, the surgical masks, fall into this category. And so innovation, we know, is complicated. But when we talk about innovation in a regulated environment, we really introduce a level of complexity into the equation. So for context, I'll just share with you, who is GCMI? So GCMI, we are the Southeast first and only medical device innovation center. We are dedicated to accelerating the design, the development, testing, training, and commercialization of innovative medical products. We are a not-for-profit 501c3 organization and an affiliate of Georgia Tech. We launched in 2012 with an innovation grant from the U.S. Department of Commerce, as well as support from the Georgia Research Alliance. And the goal is really to, we want to have the innovation that's originating in our healthcare systems, in our universities, in our communities, to stay in Georgia, in the Southeast, and to grow here where we can create jobs and attract investment, versus historically the pathway startups would go to Boston or New York or San Francisco. And so GCMI is really about keeping that innovation, growing our economy locally. You can see in some of the pictures, so we operate a state-of-the-art facility with equipment, surgical suites, lab, and a team of over 50 people that really allows for rapid prototyping and testing of these highly regulated devices. So our role in the COVID-19 crisis, it's really a blessing that we've had the ability to serve in this way. And so I'll just kind of give you a snapshot. It's been kind of like the Wild West out there I'm sure everyone's seen on the news in terms of 3D printing of new devices and PPE shortages and the health and safety of our healthcare front lines. And so on March 19th, I got what I refer to as the day of the call. And so I went back to my phone records because I remembered it distinctly. It just set off a cascade of events and activities with our team. And so at 12:15, for precisely 5 minutes, I got a call from a physician at the Aflac Cancer Center at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, who was very concerned about the looming PPE shortage in front of us as this country. And so most PPE is manufactured in China. And we know that with the COVID crisis and what happened over February and March really disrupted the traditional supply chains for medical technology, including PPE, to get to people who needed it in the States. So she had been working with a professor at Georgia Tech and wanted on a new face shield design and wanted to see if we could help. And of course I said yes. And so at 4:06 that afternoon, our engineering team and the Georgia Tech engineers and the physicians and our physicians on our team, they came together around a new face shield design that they could 3D print and rapidly iterate to get something to the healthcare front lines. So at 4:06, the team got together and had feedback on the design. At precisely 748, we brought in an external hybrid team that included Georgia Tech, GCMI, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and the Pediatric Technology Center as other external partners who are going to be critical to get this to the healthcare front lines. Because one thing to keep in mind when thinking about innovation in the medtech space is it's a team sport. And so it's very multidisciplinary, where you have to bring together the engineers and the physicians and the business people and the regulators in order to really get something to market effectively, much less in the middle of a pandemic. So precisely 9 hours after I had the initial call, we had an expanded group coming together in a formalized collaboration that would set off the journey of getting PPE to the front lines. So the following week, we launched a national initiative. We took a national stage, really hosted by the FAA. Believe it or not, we've seen a lot of cross-industry and cross-agency collaboration through this challenge. And like medical devices, the airline industry is quite attuned to quality standards and ISO standards. So they made really great partners in understanding how to pivot and turn some of that manufacturing to be able to help manufacture PPE. So it was a really interesting mix of people, including the Army, NASA, ExxonMobil. We had daily calls and then every other day calls with Mount Sinai and Mount General to really understand what was happening at any given moment on the front lines. And so on the 26th, we started the 3D printing and transitioning that to scaled manufacturing. And so why is that important? So you'll hear a lot on the news, we all did, that everybody with a 3D printer thought they were in the medical device manufacturing business. And that presents some unique challenges, particularly given the regulations. However, we have to understand, and just moving forward, rapid 3D printing is wonderful for rapid prototyping, but it's not great for rapid manufacturing. And so, for example, the initial 3D printed shields, each one took anywhere from, say, 25 to 50 minutes a piece. Maybe you could do 2 at a time. If we shifted to other manufacturing methods, we could increase the volume, but only with injection molding, where we could do 6 parts in every 19 seconds with a $10,000 investment, were we able to start making a dent in getting face shields to people. So on April 2nd, we announced we'd been working with Exxon and saw a way to formally partner and come together to take advantage of their network and that scale. So special thanks to ExxonMobil, but really prior to COVID, I don't think I've ever heard ExxonMobil and medical devices mentioned in the same sentence. But they really helped us connect with other injection molding houses around the country so we could turn on the supply chain and start this manufacturing at scale, as well as providing the plastic for the face shield productions. And so then we moved to, in 2.5 weeks, thanks to Delta Airlines, and a $20,000 raise we set up a GoFundMe page. We had the money to buy raw materials and supplies and work with Delta to get the first 6,000 shields produced, the first 2,000 of which they flew up to Mount Sinai for us. And this was really at a critical time in New York where there was a great shortage. And finally, really the limiting factor in terms of being able to accelerate was funding. So to purchase the tooling, to manufacture hundreds of thousands of these a week, which toolings is expensive. And so like everything else in life, money can be the limiting factor. And so thanks to AFLAC and your wonderful community there in Columbus, we had a generous gift that enabled us to purchase tooling, turn on the supply chains that we had put in place, and really start producing and delivering PPE to those areas across the country in great need, including Georgia. And so for context, getting a typical medical device to market can take between 5 and 7 years, depending on the risk profile of the device. Something like this, you could do it in a few months, perhaps. Never in my career and on the team has seen have we been able to go in 2.5 weeks from a prototype into large-scale production and distribution. So I wanted to share with you kind of my lessons learned so far through this process, since that day on March 19th. And so, I remember thinking during that time, okay, let's lead an interdisciplinary group of people from government, industry, academia, most of whom we've not met. I still don't know what a lot of people look like. I just know the sound of their voice. Layering in a time of great stress and uncertainty to address a critical gap facing our healthcare front lines. And I'm like, what else are we going to do through this process, right? We have the ability and the expertise to serve, and so we're going to serve regardless of what can go wrong. And so what have I learned? So a real willingness to trust, as I mentioned, a lot of these people we've not worked with before. We learned to trust each other and our quick decision-making as a team. We learned how to trust our partners, but then we learned how to trust but verify along the way. And so I think that's really important when working across different industry sectors in a crisis, that there has to be a willingness there, but to do your homework. The second thing is really the power of creativity and critical thinking. And so our team was prepared. This is what we do. We advise companies on how to do this every single day, but really had the ability to think outside the box in new ways, and then have the critical thinking skills to quickly analyze and assess risk for ourselves, for our organization, and for our partners. So continuing to invest in that. The second is, I can't stress this enough, is the importance of structure and innovation. And so when you're being creative and you're moving quickly, it's important to maintain that structure, to be the creativity, but at some point the creativity needs to turn into a structured process, particularly in a regulated industry in innovation, because without that structure and without that process, the innovations never really make it through that transition phase. And then finally, just emphasizing having the right team feels amazing. I have been so proud of our team throughout building GCMI over the last 8.5 years, and seeing them come together and all of us work together. Like, I cannot emphasize what a wonderful feeling that is. It's been one of the most positive experiences in my career. And so just thinking about, all of this and these lessons learned and moving forward and our role moving forward in innovation really, brings me back to Rotary's motto. So service above self. So I encourage everyone, as we go through the next year of dealing with the challenges, is to really emphasize and think about creatively how to step outside your comfort zone, do things in a way that you've maybe not done before, and really serving the community versus yourself. So at this point, I'll take some questions, but I've got my contact information here for anyone who wants to learn more. Our website, you can follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. You can just look up our name.
All right. Thank you so much, Tiffany. That was fantastic. We appreciate your time and really, most importantly, the work that you're doing. It's really heartening and encouraging. This is an uncertain time, and we, at least locally, we had an article today about the single greatest one-day spike in COVID cases in Lee County. So wherever you are, you're in the right place. But one question about innovation. What are some other, we talked about the PPEs, but what are some other innovations that your organization has helped with?
So we have, over the last 8.5 years, we've worked on new heart valves, new feeding systems for babies, monitoring systems for different healthcare settings. It really runs the gamut. But what we've really learned when it comes to these medical products is that not necessarily learn, but recognize that regardless of the innovation, regardless if it's a new orthopedic device or in wound care or neurology, if it's regulated by the specific division of FDA, it's going to follow the same process. And so there's different levels of risk involved, and there's different experts that you need to bring in. And so the way we've focused is really on the process and optimizing those systems. And then whoever comes in, our network across the country and really globally at this point, whether it's intellectual property or regulatory expertise or manufacturing or strategic distribution, we know who to call and how to connect the dots to help those things move forward.
Excellent. How closely do you work with the CDC?
We've done some work with CDC in some of their innovation that they have. So when they have people who go, say, to Africa and see challenges there and have ideas to innovate and help, we've worked with them in that capacity to build prototypes here and then teach them how to build it in Africa. But recently, during the crisis, we've just been in close communication with certain people at CDC and FDA to make sure that when we're innovating, whether it's face shields or N95 masks or ventilators or what have you, that we've got the close communication. We can pick up the phone and get questions answered, because particularly early, in that late March, early April, everything was so fluid. And so the guidelines and the standards were constantly being reevaluated and updated, because we're learning. There's so much about this virus that we don't know. And so it's just in a constant cycle of learning and updating.
Great. How about, have you worked on faster ways of developing ventilators, or how about any involvement in the development of a vaccine or the delivery of a vaccine?
Right. And so GCMI wouldn't necessarily be involved in vaccine development because we're very technology focused versus pharmaceutical or biologics. That being said, when we're looking at maybe new diagnostics or vaccine delivery, those are initiatives. We haven't seen any yet, but those are things that we have supported in the past. Again, following the same process, accessing our quality systems, using our certified clean room space to produce some of these things for clinical trials, and then just developing that network that we know who to call when that person walks through the door.
Thanks for joining us today and for the wonderful program. Again, it is encouraging news. We're all doing the best we can to get through a challenging time, and we're grateful for the work you're doing. And we're also very proud of our company, Aflac, here for making such a worthy investment in your cause. Tyler, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Cameron. And Tiffany, thank you. On behalf of our 300 members, I just want to thank you for sharing your time with us today. I want to thank you for what you and your organization have done. Please pass that along to your colleagues. Just the story of having so many diverse organizations come together at a time of crisis is inspiring, and it also gives us some faith that that type of human spirit will help us get through this time. So
it's really my pleasure. Thank you. And we're here to serve Columbus in the future, so you know where to find us.
Well, thank you. And let me tell you, it is our custom to donate a children's book to our local library that will be inscribed with your name in your honor. So,
oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. So this concludes my final meeting as your president, and it's been an incredible honor. So I want to thank you all for having confidence in me, for supporting me. So many of you had kind words throughout the year that have meant a lot to me. I especially want to thank my wife, Eleanor, for being patient with me and helping me throughout the last year, including today as part of the production team running our dial-in conference line. Next week will be our Changing of the Guard ceremony live from our all-new studio. We'll honor our past presidents, and we'll look forward to next year under the leadership of President-elect Joe Young. We've reimagined how this program is going to be, so we've got some really neat things that you'll enjoy that work well in this virtual format. One last comment to Joe. Joe, I've been impressed with your preparation, your dedication to this role. You're going to do a great job, and we're fortunate to have you lead us next year. With no further business, we're adjourned.